It's been a long, cold off season. Closely watching construction and searching for any news surrounding the incredible coasters being built in 2020 has certainly made it feel even longer. Have I been so invested in every Pantheon update that perhaps I haven't even realized the magnitude of Iron Gwazi yet? I needed to see it for myself, so I booked a flight to Florida. When I walked through that gate, it was staring at me right in the eyes. That's when I realized that Busch Gardens has been holding an ace card in their back pocket for years. And as I walked around the park, it became clear to me they weren't ready to rush and drop that ace. Instead, spending years collecting the greatest of all hands. Everything needed to be perfect. 2020 will be the year they finally lay down a royal flush and become one of the greatest parks in the world. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Going to a theme park is an experience that starts when you get to the front gate. Sure, we all love the rides, but to me what really sets a park apart from the rest is when you can leave your world and enter theirs. I just put out a video on how Busch Gardens Williamsburg is one of the most beautiful parks in the world. And while I still stand by that video, as I walked around the Tampa park the other day, I couldn't help but to keep second guessing everything I thought I knew about Williamsburg. The themed areas of this park are so well put together that I get completely lost in the experience. I cherish every second of it, and after spending the entire day here, when I walk out of the park and see the traffic, stoplights, and fast food, I just want to run back in as fast as I can. Because looking back at Cheetah Hunt and Montu always makes me sad I have to leave. I've made 3 trips to this park, and it's delivered 3 of my best theme park days. This is my story on why I think Busch Gardens Tampa is already a top park, and how I think the addition of Iron Gwazi will make it one of the best in the world. Let's start with the calendar. If the park ain't open, well, nothing really matters. But we don't have any issues here. It's open 365 days a year. You see, the coldest month in Tampa would be January. And with an average high of 70 degrees and an average low of 52, well, you know the rest. Live in the area and you're set. Live somewhere cold, how's a trip to Florida sound? And let's say you want to go to the Orlando area, well, Busch Gardens covers that too. They have multiple locations you can catch a bus that'll bring you to the park free of charge. Just make sure you have your ticket in hand. The first time I looked at this park, I'm like, yeah, that's some good looking rides. Going to the park my first time, I really had a blast on them too. And as the years have passed, I've went to so many more parks, and I've really started to appreciate this unique collection of coasters so much more for what they are. And sure, they don't break every record known to man, and the park doesn't boast a record number of coasters. But typically when they do build one, they get it right. Let's take a look at a few. You got Montu, and most people have rode an invert before. The majority are solid rides. However, most everyone will admit that Montu holds the title when it comes to the invert. It's a ride that just keeps bringing it, not to mention the theming is on point. Then you got Cheetah Hunt, an Intamin multi-launch coaster. This is one of those rides that you know that years of planning went into the build. Every bend of the steel was thought out to perfection to take advantage of the environment around it and the theming of a cheetah running wild. The launch up that alley and the weaving back and forth make this a must ride for me every visit. And that unique figure 8 is perfectly placed, and you'll find yourself just trying to watch this coaster from every angle you can find. And you got Kumba, another coaster that was perfectly planned, taking advantage of every inch of land around it. I could sit and watch it all day or ride it. Wouldn't matter to me either way. It's perfect in almost every way possible. Don't let that manufacture date of 1993 scare you. This ride was executed perfectly and has been properly maintained over the years, and it still offers a great ride in 2020. They contacted Intamin to build a drop tower. Tons of parks have these. They take up little land and offer a great and scary experience for guests. But just any drop tower wouldn't do. They wanted to take it one step further. When the ride gets to the top, it tilts you straight down where all you can do is stare at the earth 310 foot below you. What an awesome ride, and once again, it doesn't matter to me if you want to ride it or just watch it. Having rides the whole family can enjoy is always a good thing. Busch Gardens dominates in this area. They contacted Mack Rides and once again knocked it out of the park with Cobra's Curse. Featuring a very rare elevator style lift hill that brings you face to face with that massive snake is something that families are sure to travel hundreds, if not thousands of miles to experience. Once you get over the fact that it's a family attraction and not a 200-foot tall one, you're going to have a great time. It's one of the best family coasters I've ever experienced. You know, I always talk about the importance of the transportation rides. It's an overlooked area that I think all parks should feature, and Busch Gardens has 2 of them. Now, what's especially cool about these is they give you a chance to experience a zoo, either by land or from the sky. It's a great way to catch a breather, get some fresh air, and see the park from angles you just couldn't before. And a huge focus has been placed on the landscaping and wildlife at this park. It's nearly everywhere you turn. One minute you're on a coaster, and the next you're walking through some of the most beautiful areas you could imagine. They do such a good job tying it all together and spacing it out perfect. This is the stuff that just adds to the total experience. And there's so much stuff I could talk about, like how clean the park is, the great shows, and the food selections, and maybe I'll go into that in a later video. And early last year they closed down Kumba and gave it a complete paint job, and it couldn't look better. I think this was the first phase getting ready for 2020. Then they opened Tigris. It gave the park another coaster to add to the lineup, and it packs a good punch in a small package. I personally think this was done for 2 reasons. One, it adds another solid coaster to the lineup and makes the park look even more attractive. And 2, it'll help carry some of the crowds over to that section of the park and maybe help slow down the crowds on Iron Gwazi. If you know anything about these RMC coasters, it's that they're very popular and draw huge lines. With Busch Gardens always having a good guest experience at the top of what they do, I think getting the line any shorter would feel like a win to them. You walk around this park and everything is perfect, and it looks so nice. Well, except Scorpion. When I saw it, I just kept thinking they must be about to remove this because every other ride in this park is so clean and has a solid coat of paint on it. And yeah, I rode it and it was a great ride for sure, but I couldn't get over that paint. I mean, it's pretty normal for a park to have multiple faded roller coasters, but this one just stuck out at this park. But to my surprise, in 2020, they completely repainted it, and it looks so good. Once again, I think this is the finishing touches before that grand opening. You look at the park and what they've been doing the last few years, and it really makes me think they've been waiting to RMC Gwazi, but wanted to make sure everything was just right. That's just speculation on my part, but think about it. Gwazi has been closed for 5 years. They even shipped the trains to Busch Gardens Williamsburg for Invader. There's no doubt in my mind they had some kind of plans for Gwazi. I mean, this park is maintained to the max. If they didn't have plans, they would have just leveled it right away and moved along. As you can see, this park is near perfect. If there was one thing I think was missing, it was a record-breaking hype ride. Sure, Kumba and Montu did it for the park, but that was in the 90s, and even though they're still 2 of the best coasters out there, the park has been missing that huge new ride for years now. Mack, Intamin, B&M, and GCI are just a few that are building some incredible rides right now. But I don't care what anyone says. Having an RMC at your park is where all the hype is right now. And it's straight bragging rights. They're the hottest manufacturer in the game at the moment. When the park announced Iron Gwazi and the stats, I was excited just like anyone. But I was also excited about a new Intamin multi-launch being built at my home park. No matter how much I love RMC, the fact is some of my favorite and most intense rides have been built by Intamin. However, when I walked into Busch Gardens Tampa and saw Iron Gwazi in person, that's when I realized how big of a deal this ride is. It demands your attention, and not just when you walk up to it, but wherever you are in the park. It may not have the length of Steel Vengeance, but it's every bit as massive. And that purple iBox track, I'm not sure the park could have selected a better color. It looks so mean and aggressive in person. The entire feel of the station and queue just looks so awesome to me. All of the colors they used and just the environment are going to give it such a unique feel, just waiting to get on it or even watch people that are riding it. I really think Iron Gwazi has a chance to be the best RMC to date. It doesn't matter that it's just over 4,000 feet long, because it's going to be the tallest and steepest RMC in America. And if anything, I think the shorter layout is going to make for some awesome pacing. If you haven't seen it in person, just wait until you do. Trust me, you'll understand. As I walked around the park looking for new places to get footage of it, I just kept noticing new elements that I can't wait to experience. For starters, that 91-degree drop is going to be crazy, especially in the back seat. And I can't wait for that outward banking turn. But it's two things I'm more excited about than anything. This flyby behind the entrance is going to add so much energy to Iron Gwazi. Not just for the people riding it, but for every person that walks through that gate and stops for a second to see what all the hype's about. I think about how this same element helped to make Fury what it is today. It's a way to tease everyone watching and let them know you're on it and they're not. In a few short months, everybody will be posting this moment to their social media accounts, fighting for the most creative way to capture it, and I can't wait to see it all start to happen. Which leads me to the one element I'm most excited about. When I saw this, I just couldn't help but to think of that drop on Storm Chaser and Twisted Timbers. The way the drop pulls you through the inversion really feels awesome. The only difference is that on this one, you're going to be hauling when you go through it. And there are so many more cool elements with Iron Gwazi, but I just wanted to list a few. When you look at Busch Gardens Tampa and how unique of a ride selection they have and how well the park is put together, and then you think about adding this incredible RMC to the lineup, I really think that this park is going to be one of the top parks in the world in 2020. And I know I was talking about my Busch Gardens Williamsburg video earlier, so if you haven't got a chance to watch that, here's a quick clip. And also, make sure you click that subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to go to a theme park that's as beautiful as it is fun? Let's face it, most of us go for the rides. It's just a fact. And if you don't believe me, when's the last time you went to a park's website and looked for the section that shows the flowers, the terrain, and the waterfalls? Odds are you haven't. You went to the page to look at the rides, check the hours, and the prices. On paper, the park with the biggest and baddest rides always seems like a no-brainer. However, that's not always the case, and whether you realize it or not, going to a theme park is a complete experience that starts the minute you arrive at the front gate. I've made nearly 200 trips to theme parks over the last 3.5 years, including many visits to Busch Gardens. I've seen and learned a lot, but this is my experience on how Busch Gardens took a pretty good collection.